Number 7. Calabria Gondrezic Haskins. Professional football player Dwayne Haskins was attacked by his wife at a Las Vegas hotel in July of 2021. After marrying in March of that same year, the couple had reportedly taken the trip to Vegas in order to renew their wedding vows. On the night of the incident, Calabria Gondrezic Haskins and her husband had had a heated argument at their room at the Cosmopolitan Hotel. The woman had reportedly become upset after Haskins had gone to a nightclub with his friends without waiting for her and her friends, who'd attended a show earlier in the evening. The conflict eventually escalated into a physical altercation, and police officers were called to the scene after Haskins had sustained what were described as substantial injuries. Upon their arrival, they discovered that the 24-year-old quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers had a bloodied lip and was missing a tooth. He was taken to a nearby hospital for treatment, although he would later claim not to remember having been punched by his wife. Haskins also disputed report that he'd lost a tooth in the row. However, officers at the scene had reportedly found it on the floor of the hotel room. Gondrezic Haskins was taken into custody and charged with felony battery and domestic violence resulting in bodily harm. On January the 10th of 2022, her charges were reportedly dismissed. Number 6. Nina Thomas. Police officers were dispatched to an Airbnb in Austin, Texas, in the early morning hours of April the 13th of 2020 after receiving a call about a disturbance on the premises. When they arrived at the rental home, the officers saw a knife-wielding female chasing after a shirtless man who was holding a gun. Both individuals were ordered to drop their weapons and lie on the ground with their hands clearly visible. They both followed the officers' orders without further incident, and an investigation into what had transpired leading up to the intervention of law enforcement was officially set into motion. According to court documents, the woman that the police had encountered was Nina Thomas, the wife of former professional football player Earl Thomas, following a contentious argument between the couple which had reportedly centered on the former NFL star's excessive drinking. Earl had left their home with his brother Seth. A short time later, Nina logged into her husband's Snapchat account to track his location, whereupon she discovered that he was at the nearby Airbnb where the police were ultimately called. Nina told investigators that she'd grabbed her husband's 9mm Beretta and driven to the rental property with 2 female companions. Upon their arrival, they allegedly discovered Earl in a bed with his brother and several other women. Enraged, Nina berated her husband while holding him at gunpoint. Earl eventually managed to wrestle the firearm away from her, but not before she'd hit him in the face multiple times. A female witness that had allegedly been in bed with Earl and his brother later revealed to the police that one of Nina's friends was carrying a knife and had been waving it aggressively throughout the altercation. Nina was ultimately charged with burglary of a residence with intent to commit aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. In November of 2020, Nina filed for divorce from Earl. She was also granted a restraining order against him following an incident in which he'd threatened her and her family in a drunken outburst at her parents' house. Number 5. Erica Wolf Jones. On Christmas Eve of 2021, political commentator Alex Jones called 911 to report that his wife had violently assaulted him at their residence in Austin, Texas. The founder and host of InfoWars would later tell investigators that he'd become fearful for his life after 43-year-old Erica Wolf Jones had struck him more than 20 times with her fists and a soap bottle. She'd also allegedly made attempts to hit him with a polished club and a 5-pound stone ball. During the 911 call, Jones told the emergency dispatcher that Erica was still trying to hit him over the head with the club. Officers were called to the scene, at which point they took the woman into custody. She was booked into Travis County Jail shortly before 9 p.m. on December the 24th. While the couple was giving their child a bath on the night of the altercation, they'd reportedly gotten into an argument regarding Erica's suspicion that Jones was cheating on her, and the physical altercation erupted soon after that. The responding officers had reportedly noted the distinct smell of alcohol on Erica's breath. However, her husband attributed her violent outburst to an imbalance in her prescription medication rather than to her intoxication. Erica was ultimately charged with causing bodily injury to a family member and resisting arrest. Number 4. Bobby Brown. In an autobiography published in 2017, American singer Bobby Brown expressed his belief that his marriage to renowned singer and actress Whitney Houston had been ill-fated from the start. The couple had reportedly met while attending the Soul Train Awards in 1989. and they married 3 years later in a ceremony held at Houston's New Jersey mansion. Brown would later claim that his wife had introduced him to cocaine shortly before their marriage, and that he'd even stumbled upon her partaking in the illegal drug on their wedding day. Shortly thereafter, Brown himself reportedly developed a cocaine addiction, which gradually worsened throughout the 1990s. Houston would later file for legal separation from her husband and eventually divorced him in 2007. Over the course of their widely publicized tumultuous relationship, Brown was arrested several times, including in connection to a domestic violence incident in which he'd allegedly struck Houston in the face. Police officers at the scene reported that she had a visible bruise on her left cheek and a cut inside her upper lip. Following their divorce, Houston publicly stated that Brown had been abusive towards her on multiple occasions throughout their marriage. Number 3. Christina Glover. Three-time PGA Tour winner Lucas Glover was the victim of a domestic violence incident involving his wife in May of 2018. The resulting arrest report indicated that Christina Glover had attacked her husband and mother-in-law at a rental home in Ponte Vedra, Florida, where they'd been staying during the 2018 Players' Championship. Local sheriff's deputies arrived at the scene at around 8:30 p.m. after someone in the house had called 911. The officers reportedly came upon Christa and Lucas as they were engaged in a verbal altercation on the front porch. In an official statement to the deputies, the professional golfer revealed how his wife, who'd allegedly been drinking throughout the evening, had instigated an argument with him and his mother after he'd gotten eliminated from the tournament earlier in the day. Lucas went on to explain that Christa would often verbally abuse him whenever he played poorly in a golf competition. During the incident in question, the woman had physically assaulted Lucas as well, a statement substantiated by visible lacerations on his arm. Lucas's mother also had cuts on her arms, and the deputies noted that there appeared to be blood on her clothes. While Christa was in the officer's custody, she reportedly attempted to escape and forcefully kicked the rear driver's side door of the police cruiser, damaging the vehicle. She was ultimately charged with domestic violence and resisting arrest. Number 2. Emma Coronel Aispuro. On February the 22nd of 2021, law enforcement officers descended on Dulles International Airport near Washington, D.C., where they arrested the wife of the infamous Mexican drug lord known as El Chapo. 31-year-old Emma Coronel Aispuro was subsequently charged with conspiracy to distribute cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and marijuana in the United States. Her arrest occurred following a federal investigation into her connection to her husband's international drug trafficking ring. Prosecutors alleged that Aispuro had been intimately involved with El Chapo's criminal activity while he served as the head of the Sinaloa cartel. She'd reportedly grown up with knowledge of the drug trafficking operations, as both her father and brother had been cartel members themselves. Federal investigators claimed that Aispuro had facilitated the transfer of messages between El Chapo and his lieutenants while he was incarcerated at the Altiplano prison in Mexico. The FBI further alleged that Aispuro had been a key element in her husband's 2015 escape from Altiplano. A criminal complaint against the woman detailed how she'd organized the construction of an underground tunnel that was subsequently used by El Chapo to flee from the detention facility. The tunnel reportedly stretched from a hole beneath the prison shower all the way to a plot of land roughly a mile away. In her interviews with investigators, Aispuro claimed to have had no connection or intimate knowledge of the Sinaloa cartel and her husband's illicitly obtained freedom. The charges leveled against her carried a maximum penalty of life in prison and a $10 million fine. She ultimately entered a plea deal for federal drug trafficking charges and in November of 2021 was sentenced to 3 years in prison in the US. Number 1. Kenneth Petty. In October of 2019, hip-hop artist Nicki Minaj announced that she'd married a childhood friend of hers named Kenneth Zoo Petty. The news of their relationship was met with some controversy due to the fact that Petty had been convicted of abducting and abusing a teenage girl in September of 1994. Court records detailed how the man had forcefully taken high school student Jennifer Huff to a house located near her bus stop, where he assaulted her at knife point. Petty consequently spent 4 years behind bars. In March of 2020, he was arrested once more for his failure to report his previous convictions to the state of California, where he and Minaj resided at the time. In September of 2021, the 43-year-old pleaded guilty to the new charges during a virtual hearing with the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. The charges Petty faced reportedly carried a maximum prison term of 10 years, and his sentencing hearing was scheduled to take place on January the 24th of 2022. Petty and Minaj were also sued by Huff in August of 2021. The civil lawsuit claimed that the couple had attempted to intimidate the alleged assault victim into recanting her allegations against Petty. Thanks for watching. Would you rather marry your celebrity crush or get $5 million wired to your bank account? Let us know in the comments section below.